Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to Candy Bee Knittin'. I'm Candy Bee. I be knitting. And I thought we'd just get back. Last couple of videos have been reflecting on what I did in 2023, looking forward to 2024. So I thought I would catch y'all up with some more that happened over the holiday season and bring you to the present with my current whip. So for Christmas, I got, you guys hear me joke all the time about my project bags, but I actually now am the proud owner of a proper knitting specific or fiber art specific project bag. This is Magner Co. and it's located down in Georgia. I believe it came from Etsy, and it's just a waxed canvas bag with one of those big open tops. There's little slots for knitting needles and notions and some grommets inside. You can see it's filled to the brim with yarn right now. And it's got the drawstring action. It's just the style of bag I've been coveting for a long time. So I was very happy to get one of these. I am, as part of this video, I do want to talk a bit about tools that I like. And my favorite project bag is actually, I have some just drawstring bags that you get when you buy bedspreads and sheets and stuff, and they hang from my wrist, and they're pretty convenient, but it's nice to have a nice big old bag full of yarn. So I got this for Christmas. And the other big Christmas gift I got is a proper set of interchangeable needles. These are Chiaogoo, which is my personal favorite brand of knitting needles. I own a lot of the fixed circular 40-inch ones, and I've coveted this for a long time. And I make do with the 40-inch ones, but it's nice to have. This is, it goes from US size 2, 2.75 millimeters, all the way up to size 15, 10 millimeters. And so with this little binder, which y'all remember, one of my goals is to organize my craft room, get rid of a lot of the clutter in there. So this little binder replaces a tote bag full of straight knitting needles. So I'm very excited about this. That being said, Christmas Day I opened both of these, and I was like, well, I need something to kind of go with my new gift. And of course, I have a long list of things I would like to knit or I'm planning to knit, but those require forethought and swatching, etc., etc. So I was like, I just really want something that I know is going to be fun for me, like in my personal wheelhouse, but also relatively low commitment. Like, if it doesn't turn out absolutely perfect, is my day going to be ruined kind of thing. And so one of the big reasons I wanted an interchangeable needle set is because I own mostly size 40 circulars in the Chiaogoo, and then I own some 16-inch circulars that I use mostly for hats and sleeves, and then I have some DPNs, and then I have straight needles for everything else. And the 40-inch work really, really well because I love shawls. They work really well when I get down to the body of my sweaters, because I am a 38 to 40-inch bust, and so it's nice that my sweaters lay flat. But it's always difficult for me to get sweaters started because I'm usually doing magic loop, which isn't my favorite, and putting stitches on hold for sleeves, and it's just always just a lot of manipulation. And so this is a very seamless way to go from the small circumference of the neck to the huge circumference of, raglan increases, and then down to the body decreases, and then putting stitches on hold for the sleeves. So far, so good. And so I was just like, I definitely want to start with a sweater, because that's going to be like jumping straight in with the test of how these are going to work for me. And so I cast on this little number, and this is called the Simple Sweater by TinCanKnits. It is a top-down, top-down circular yoke construction. And the pattern, just like a lot of TinCanKnits patterns, it goes from like fingering weight to a worsted weight, all ranges, from baby sizes to adult sizes. And the reason I cast this on is in the pattern picture, it has a striped yoke, but the pattern itself gives you instructions if you want to make it striped, if you don't want to make it striped. And the reason I got this is because I downloaded the TinCanKnits app, and they were doing a fundraiser to raise money to improve the app, which I can definitely see they've made great strides on that app as far as usability goes. And they were, basically saying if you donate $20, we'll give you their newest pattern, which is that bobbly, I think it's called the Silver Bell sweater. You get that pattern for free, and then they gave you 3 like vouchers to use on the app for any patterns you want that are for sale on the app. And they're constantly, trying to improve the app, adding new patterns. And so I was kind of holding on to the vouchers, hoping down the line they would add, different patterns. But, like I said, day after Christmas came, I really wanted to make a sweater, and the thumbnail for that sweater has this kid in this striped sweater, and I was like, I have multicolored yarn that I can use. I think this is what I'm making, and it's a sweater, and I knew I really trust TinCanKnits sizing and stuff, so I was just like, I wasn't that concerned about swatching, because this yarn that I'm using is Knit Picks palette, and I'm holding it double, and so I'm doing a DK weight, and I was just like, if it's too tight, it's gonna give like a negative ease, almost like a retro vibe with the stripes. It's going to be very 70s. If it's oversized, then it's just an oversized sweater. So I really didn't feel that put out. And mostly I was making it for fun and to try out these new knitting needles. And the colors themselves, if y'all recall my video a while back, I was talking about how I had all this Knit Picks palette yarn in different colors. And I was going to make Stephen West hybrid knitting cowl, because it's like a color work with all these different colors in it. And of course I can't ever stick to one idea. And so I was like, I'm just going to use it for this, because I think it's great for, for sweater knitting. Just the idea of having a striped sweater just sounds like just the bee's knees to me. And I've had this yarn for a very long time. One of these days I'm going to get into like how I shop for yarn, but basically all of this yarn is secondhand yarn. And what I do is one of my tips, if you're thrifting for yarn, is I try to find brands I can recognize. And so if I can only get 1 or 2 balls at a time, I know I can go online and get brand new balls if I want. If I go to other thrift stores, I can continue to collect yarn, and eventually I can collect enough for one project, or I have enough knowledge to go off of. Knit Picks palette's a pretty ubiquitous, popular yarn, so I'll be able to find ideas of things to make, and I'll be able to mix it and match it, etc., etc., etc. So what started as a couple of balls of Knit Picks palette turned into 11 different colors of Knit Picks palette, and so I was like just kind of collecting, and I was like, I probably should use this soon, because now it's just I'm collecting Knit Picks palette for what? Like this weird... I don't know if this would look really great in like a stranded color work situation. I think the stripes complement it well. And so what I did was I caked up all of the palette I had, and mostly I have 1 ball of each color, and put them in my brand new knitting bag, and had my kids just reach out and pull a color. And so the color placement on here is completely as random as a 7 and a 4-year-old can get. Mostly it was them. You can see one kid picked this. One kid's favorite color is yellow, so one child went and picked blue. They picked blue again. They just picked every color of blue they could find till there was no more blue. And so it's kind of just a hodgepodge. It was also during Kwanzaa, and so, one of the principles of Kwanzaa is unity, and another is creativity, and so this will be kind of like my Kwanzaa sweater. That I worked on with my kids when they were of a certain age, and I know which kid picked which color and why. The other thing about this, I'm holding it double. I'm using size 6 needles, doing it randomly. Eventually I am going to run out of certain colors, because not all of them were like full balls to begin with. And so what I did was I knew that I wanted at least striped sleeves. At the very, very least, I wanted striped sleeves, and I also wanted the sleeves to match with their striping. I think that if I had to choose which look is the most balanced, it would be for the sleeves to be fully striped. And so I did the yoke, then I started on the sleeves, and I just, you know, once I went through one color repeat, I had the kids go back and start picking again, and now I'm like slowly going through each ball of yarn. And so it takes 5 grams to do a stripe on the sleeve. It takes 15 grams to do a stripe on the body. And so as I'm going through the yarn, I'm just weighing it and seeing which colors are left for which part of the body. So I did a good bit of the sleeves, and I know that I'll have plenty of yarn left to do the sleeves, but I did want to get a little bit more striping done in the body. And so now I've put the sleeves on hold, and now I'm going to stripe as much as I can in the body, because the thing is, the one I have the most of is actually this green yarn. And so once I run out of striping, the rest of the sweater is going to be solid, and it's going to be the solid green, and then the ribbing on the sleeves is going to be green. And so that'll kind of make it a little bit more cohesive. Also, side note, I think this would be a great steeking project. As I started doing it, I was like, this would be a cute striped cardigan. But I'm not quite ready for primetime player when it comes to steeking. But the other note I want to make about this yarn is, yes, this is all Knit Picks palette, but this green is not Knit Picks palette, and I want to show you guys something real quick. So as I was saying, all the Knit Picks palette is secondhand, and I believe I maybe paid $2 or $3 a ball, and Knit Picks palette goes for like $5 a ball on Knit Picks website. And this is green Knit Picks palette yarn. And if you go on the website, you'll be able to figure out what the actual shades of all of these are. I don't necessarily have the ball bands for all of these. This is the green I'm using in this sweater. So these look pretty darn similar. And the story with this green is that I just got a big bag of this, and I think it was like $20 for like a big gallon size Ziploc bag of this. And just looking at it, I was just like, it's fingering weight. That means I can hold it with other things. If I do need more yarn, I do like this shade of green, so I was fine with it. The twist is slightly different. I feel like the Knit Picks palette is a little bit fluffier, but as far as like being fingering weight and being, the right shade, it blends pretty seamlessly. And I know for a fact, just, when I was looking at it, I was like, this looks just like Knit Picks palette. But now that they're side by side, I can tell that this is not Knit Picks palette, and I can feel the texture is a little bit denser than the Knit Picks palette. The other way I know for sure is, as I'm knitting with this, there is vegetable matter in this. Like, this is like more straight from the wool than Knit Picks palette. It's less processed than a Knit Picks palette. There's like little pieces of straw in this. And so maybe it's like a Jameson jumper weight or something. I don't know, but it's working really, really well. And I have a whole bunch of it. If y'all recall, one of my goals this year is to frog some of the projects that are not working for me. And so I actually salvaged a good chunk of this from another sweater I knit last year that I was not wearing. And so I'm going to have way more than enough to finish the body once I finish striping. The pattern says to knit the body about 12 inches for my bust size. I'll probably go to like 10 inches because I'm rather short-waisted and I like things to kind of sit right at my natural waist, and then go into the ribbing. And I'm pretty darned excited about this. My only goal now is to finish this. Right now it's mid-January. It'll still be sweater weather here through February, and then March it'll start to, we might have like a 50-degree day here or there. It might even, dip, it'll have like, oh, it's getting warm, it's getting warm, it's getting warm. Oh, it's snowing kind of stuff happening. And so hopefully I can finish it and still wear it this season. I'm making really good progress on it because, surprise, surprise, last year I told y'all, surprise, surprise, last year I told y'all that I like to work on multiple things at a time, but this has actually been keeping my attention for the most part. I am working on socks, but I always have a pair of socks I have ongoing. I have some other projects that I'm like those straps. I don't even want to go there, that I'm working on. I have like a long-term plan kind of thing, and I have like that quilt that I'm working, etc. But this is the big thing I'm working on, and it's the big thing I'm working on. I actually want to work on it. I think because of the stripes, I have like that motivation, even though it's flat stockinette, or not flat stockinette, it's stockinette in the round. The stripes kind of get me motivated. Doing the sleeves and doing the shaping in the sleeves, gives me a little bit to chew on, a little bit to think about. Then I finish a stripe and I'm like, oh, I can start the next stripe, or I can, finish the stripe right quick while I watch this YouTube video, whatever. And so this has been my main project since the day after Christmas, which is, I'm completely shocked that January 2nd I didn't just start casting on literally every single thing I've been thinking about casting on. Like, I've just been like pretty faithful to this one. Yeah, so that's this. I am greatly enjoying the Chiaogoo needles. I'm going to transition into the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is kind of tools that I like. Fully endorse the Chiaogoo needles. I'm not a big wooden needle person, not a big bamboo needle person, so I like sharp metal needles, and Chiaogoo is pretty much the gold standard, or the aluminum, or what are these made of? Steel? I don't know. They're the standard when it comes to metal knitting needles. So I got the set, greatly enjoying it. It's been pretty seamless. I've even been able to, it comes with some connector pieces, so you can actually make, so I think this is a 30-inch cord, and so it's a little bit tighter than I'm used to knitting my sweaters on, but you can extend it, and that way, it has like a 30-inch cord, a 16-inch cord, and a 20, I think 20, I forget the different lengths that it comes with, but you can extend it with pieces in here and make it as long as you need it to. And I've actually been using that to try on the sweater, and it's so much more seamless than either I would put something on waste yarn, or I would grab another 40-inch long needle and put it on that and then try it on. But it's like these extra steps. With this, you just unscrew the tips, screw on the extender, and then it's long enough to try on. I'm not a big fan, and now we're getting into the tools part. I'm not a big, like, no one has sold me on, oh, you have to buy barber cord, like the long plastic piping to the try it on tubing. I really can't justify buying that. Let me know in the comments, like, oh my god, it is life changing. Like, to me, keeping it on the needle, the only thing I can think of with the try it on tubing is you can block it, and you obviously don't want to block metal needles, but even then I can just put it on waste yarn, so it's not something I'm interested in spending my money on. But yeah, that works really well for me. It comes with little stoppers for the end so your stitches don't fall off. The only critique I've ever heard of the Chiaogoos is that when you're knitting in the round, there's a tendency for the tips to become unscrewed. And luckily, I've heard that so many times before, and what most people will recommend is getting a thick rubber band and using that to just twist it a little bit tighter. And when I started knitting, I was like, oh, maybe that's not going to happen to me. But they definitely became untwisted as I was knitting, and I was like, okay, I that was a good tip that I got from the YouTubes. And so what I have, and what I have plenty of, and you might have plenty of in your house, is one of these. I'm not going to show you the front because I go to a lot of conferences and festivals and stuff like that, and so this is one of those jar openers. It's like a rubberized mat, and when a jar is too tight, you can use it to unscrew it, but it's actually branded, so some real estate agent got their brand printed on these, and I have a million of them in my drawers at home. And so I've been using this to get the needles super tight, and so far once I started using this and doing that extra little bit of tightening with this, I did not have that problem again. But if I don't do that, the thing is becoming loose. I have not lost any stitches that way, because what happens is, as it becomes unscrewed, you have the little join gets rougher and rougher, and it's harder to move my stitches, so I can tell when it's becoming unscrewed, and I just kind of shovel the stitches back on the needle and get it super, super tight. But once you tighten it a couple times with either something like this or a rubber band, it's good to go. So yes to interchangeable needles, no to barber cords. I don't find, like I said, I've never used them before, but do you need a fancy project bag? Probably not. It's nice to have. I'm really happy with it. And I, like I said, I don't have too many, like most of my project bags are tote bags that I've gotten free with purchase, or just random bags that I find around the house or find at, wherever. A lot of people that I followed that have been knitting for like decades, like 30, 40 years, they're like, I put my stuff in grocery bags and it's fine. I will say, if I'm to rank my tools, there's obviously yarn and knitting needles. And if I was like on a desert island and I could only bring one more thing with me to knit with, it would be my yarn scale, or any kind of scale. This is, I used to use a kitchen scale, but that has been commandeered to go back into my kitchen for cooking purposes. And so I enjoy using the scale so much. I specifically bought one just for yarn, and this was like $10 on Amazon if you type in scale on Amazon. What I do like about this, my kitchen scale does grams and ounces. This does grams and ounces, but it takes it out to 2 decimal places, so it's even more exact, which is super important if you're working with a very lightweight yarn. And I don't like playing yarn chicken. My idea of yarn chicken is when my scale says I have, less than a 10-gram buffer. And so especially with something like this with stripes, I weigh my yarn when I start, I do a row, I weigh my yarn again, and I see how much yarn takes a row. And I use this thing every project all the time. For the stripes, it's really important because I want all my stripes to be, if I didn't want my stripes to all be the same size, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I do want, every stripe here is 8 rows long, and so I do need to know how much yarn goes into 8 stripes. I need to know that I have enough yarn to do a full 8-row repeat. It comes in handy with binding off. Depending on the project, depending on the weight of yarn, I usually leave 5 to 10 grams to bind off. And if I'm doing like a big shawl, I get to, 25 grams left in the ball, and every row I'm weighing the yarn, I'm doing the math so that I know I have enough to bind off that whole big shawl. And also most shawl patterns, you can just kind of go until you run out of yarn, and I don't have a big use for a whole bunch of scraps. My dream knitting project, and that's why the scale is my 3rd ranked thing, is a pair of size 5 40-inch long Chiaogoo needles, some fingering weight yarn, or maybe a light DK weight yarn, and just a big like boomerang shawl, and just knit back and forth, increase on one side, decrease on the other, and just make as big a shawl as I can. And then when I get down to 10 grams, bind off. And that is my dream knitting project. Other tools that I like that you may not see other people talk about. This is my little tin. It had loose leaf tea in it, and now it can hold stitch markers. What do I have in here? I have tape measure, I have stitch markers, I have progress keepers. I don't own a lot of progress keepers. I have a couple of really nice ones just because they're more like fun and decorative to hang off certain pieces, but they're kind of heavy, and if I'm working on something fingering weight, I don't necessarily want something weighing down the yarn. My favorite thing are the light bulb stitch markers because they go around the needles really easily. But for the most part, when I first started knitting, I used safety pins, which is the same principle as the light bulb stitch marker, but the light bulb stitch marker has that nice circular opening that slides on your needle really well, and sometimes it's not easy to find safety pins that go over a lot of different size needles. But I love safety pins. Just if I ever find like a drop stitch or a mistake, I just put a safety pin in it. I also, if I'm working in, really small increments, I can use this to hold stitches sometimes. And I love the idea of a metal tin because I do own a TinCanKnits project board and that has magnets. And so it's nice to have something magnetic to put my magnets down on just to kind of keep them in place sometimes. And this thing kind of goes wherever. I own a couple of tapestry needles, but my favorite needles as far as like weaving in ends, I got this set of, these are actually for rugs, repairing rugs, and I got this at a thrift store. Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna do a whole video just about going to the thrift store because you're gonna hear a lot about my thrift store escapades. And so I got this needle, which kind of looks like a little sword, and it's nice and thick and it's super duper sharp. And then you got this one that's super sharp too. And I just, whenever I'm putting stitches on hold, mostly that's what I use them for. Like my sleeves, I put those on hold with waste yarn, and they just kind of catch the stitches just the way I like. And I just love that it's just these random needles that I found that are for rugs, but work really well for yarn. They have a really big orifice at the tip. I have like one actual tapestry needle that was sold to me specifically for weaving in ends, but these are my go-tos. I like these when I'm kitchenering socks too, because I'm using really thin yarn. I got the metal needles. This thing is like super duper sharp, and it's my jam. The Chiaogoo set came with these circular not progress keepers, whatever they're called. And they're cute. They're plastic. They're fun. I'll definitely be using these. I don't know if I have enough of each color to do like raglan increases, but I like that they have really big ones when you get into like the big chunky needles. I did come with like a little needle gauge, which is nice. I actually, the other day, I needed a 4mm needle, and I went and just grabbed it, and I knew exactly which one it was. So like, I'm needing this less and less. So that was really cool. But I do like having one of those. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about my tape measure. I do have a tape measure. This one's from Dancing with Wool, my local yarn store. I got this free with purchase. And tape measure is cool. I like it, especially, if, I'm going to be measuring Mr. Rulud very soon for his sweater, and you got to know people's measurements. But my big tip, if you are out and about and you are a crafts person, yes, indispensable. Ruler, indispensable. But I would greatly encourage you to get incredibly intimate with your own measurements, because every once in a while I am out and about and I am working on a pattern that's just like, oh, knit to this length, and I'm like, ooh, I don't have anything on me. And so I actually have measured my hand and measured my fingers, and I use my hand mostly to guide me to when a pattern is long enough. If I'm knitting socks, I'll just try the socks on myself and be like, okay, these fit my feet. But my hand is about 7 inches long, and so usually when I'm knitting a hat, for instance, I like a 6-inch brim, and so I get to about here. I'm like, okay, that's good. Or, it's like knit 2 inches. Oh, that's about this much. And so that is my little, tip of the day, I guess you could say. In general, the conventional wisdom, the average, I know every body is different and every body is valid, but a guidance is that from here to here is the size of your foot in general. And so if I'm knitting on a sock, I can kind of use this. And I also know for a fact my feet are about 9 inches long. And so this is a good, guideline. If I'm knitting on a sweater, let's say, and the body's supposed to be 12 inches. Yeah, you could hold it up like this, but then you got all that rumpling in the way. This is a good kind of guideline for that. And so that's my little tip of the day, I guess you could say. My other favorite thing to have when I'm knitting, I am using the TinCanKnits app, which has some really great functionality, but I'm not a big tech person when it comes to knitting. I use computers and video games and phones in every other aspect of my life, and so when I'm knitting, I like to be pretty low tech. And also, the way the app is set up, you can't necessarily track every single thing you're doing. And so my other favorite thing is pen and paper. But not just any pen and paper. This is actually not, this is my favorite pen. This is an Intergel liquid gel pen. I don't actually like liquid gel pens when I'm knitting because the ink tends to smudge if I'm making like quick notes to myself. But I do like a nice click pen because the caps get lost terribly. But in general, I gotta have a pen, gotta have paper. My favorite paper are these nice big, like, I think they're 3 by 5 inch. This is another way to measure your stuff. If you know how big your Post-it notes are, you can use that to measure if you don't have measuring tape. I think, like, oh goodness, I used to know how big a dollar bill was, but I don't remember the measurements of a dollar bill anymore. But I like these because they have lines on them. Usually I'm making like tally marks or little notes to myself. And I also, when I have my patterns printed out, I use the Post-it feature to actually mark my place in the pattern and move it down. I do have Post-it flags, but I find they lose their stickiness after a while, and if I put my pattern away and pull it out, the flags are going all over the place and sliding it, so it kind of defeats the purpose, and then I have to like memorize where I'm at in the pattern. But these have a nice area of stickiness on the back. They stick throughout the pattern. Usually I can use one of these and get through the whole pattern as I'm knitting, and I just make my little notes here. And then I can also, let's say I don't trust the Post-it feature of the Post-it note, I can write what row I'm on, and when I come back, if it's slid on the page, I can see that. And so I really like these. That's all I wanted to talk to y'all today. I wanted to show y'all my Christmas presents. I wanted to show you what I was working on. Like I said, I mostly have socks that I'm working on while I watch TV at night. I've got straps for this crop top that I'm working on my lunch break at work. And then I have this quilt that literally once a month I think to do a square on. But this is my main boo right now. I'm really feeling this, and I cannot wait to wear it. And I cannot wait to download more. I have 2 more vouchers for the TinCanKnits app. I think I might buy, they have one that's like still a circular yoke, but it's got some color work on it. I might download that one. I might just kind of wait and see if they add more, because at first they didn't have the love note on there, but now they've added the love note. I'm still on the fence if I want to knit a love note. There's something about that stitch pattern that I'm just like, I don't know if I like that or not, but it's so like popular. Everyone has a love note and everyone loves knitting them, so I kind of want to see what the hype is about. But still, like I said, I donated $20, got 3 vouchers, and the Silver Bells pattern. I might knit the Silver Bells next, but if y'all can do the math, y'all know that is a bargain at twice the price for those patterns. And so maybe I'll just get like the simple hat patterns, and then I'll have like go-to hat patterns at a bunch of different weights. I don't know, we'll see. I am gonna wrap it up here. Once again, I am Candy Bee Knittin on YouTube's. I am Candy Bee Knittin at gmail.com. I am also at Rulude on Instagram. I am Rulude on Ko-fi. So if you like what you see here, if you want to continue to, next week we might come back and I might be showing y'all this again. I'm going to be honest with y'all. So if you want to see the progress on this, please subscribe. If you want to share this with somebody, that'd be great too. If you want to leave me a comment in the comments, let me know, what do you think are worthwhile things to purchase as far as notions go and knitting tools go? What are like your can't live without, worth every cent tools that you use? The other thing I didn't mention is I have fingering weight polyester yarn, which is very clutch when you're picking up stitches and putting things on hold. Just a nice throwaway scrap ball of yarn is always good to have on hand. So let me know your little tips, your little tricks, the ways you save money. Maybe people always want to know that. Until the next time, peace.